Assalamualaikum and welcome to another episode of Science Videos for Grade 9 here in Siyap Ko Kapaganad. In this video, I'm going to talk about the different patterns of non-Mendelian inheritance. After watching this video, you are expected to achieve the following learning objectives. First, explain incomplete dominance and codominance. Second, solve problems involving incomplete dominance and codominance using Punnett square. And lastly, identify the possible phenotypes of the offspring and give its phenotypic ratio using the principle of codominance. In your grade 8, you have learned that Mendel proposed different laws on inheritance that explain how the traits from your parents are being passed to you and to your siblings. However, there are also patterns of inheritance that do not follow Mendel's principles, and these are called non-Mendelian patterns of inheritance. To better understand our lesson, let us first review the traits that Mendel have studied in his experiments because it is a prerequisite lesson for the non-Mendelian patterns of inheritance. So in Mendel's experiment, one allele is completely dominant over the other. Thus, the phenotype of the resulting heterozygote offspring is identical to that of homozygous dominant parent. Example, kung i-cross natin ang purebred round seed and purebred wrinkled seed, ang magiging result ng kanilang offspring ay puro round seed dahil dominant ang allele for round seed. Let's say that uppercase letter R is the symbol for dominant allele that represents round seed phenotype, while lowercase letter r is the symbol for recessive allele which represent wrinkled seed phenotype. Since dominant ang allele for round seed, lahat ng offspring ay nagkaroon ng round seed phenotype kagaya ng homozygous dominant parent. Ngayon, gumamit tayo ng Punnett square para makita natin ang result ng offspring ng purebred round seed and purebred wrinkled seed. Since pareho homozygous ang parents, maglalagay tayo ng 2 uppercase letter R for round seed and 2 lowercase letter r naman for wrinkled seed. So ang gagawin natin ay i-combine lang natin ang uppercase letter R ng round seed and lowercase letter r ng wrinkled seed. So, ganun din ang gagawin natin sa next box, pati dito sa baba. So, as you can see, lahat ng offspring ay merong uppercase letter R which represents round seed phenotype. Therefore, lahat ng offspring ay nagkaroon ng phenotype na round seed kagaya ng phenotype ng homozygous dominant parent. So, itong patterns of inheritance na na-discover ni Mendel ang madalas na nasusunod kapag nagpapasa ng traits ang parents sa offspring. Pero palaging may exception sa ganitong rules, and these exceptions are called non-Mendelian patterns of inheritance. To learn more about non-Mendelian patterns of inheritance, let us try to read and analyze the given problem, and let us apply our knowledge in grade 8 science about Punnett square. Are you ready? So here is the problem. In 4 o'clock plants, uppercase letter R is the allele for red color and uppercase letter W is the allele for white color. Construct a Punnett square showing this cross between red and white flowers and answer the following questions. First, what are the genotypes of the offspring? Second, what are the phenotypic and genotypic ratios of the offspring? So based on our Punnett square, when a true breeding pure red flowered 4 o'clock plant crosses with a true breeding pure white flowered 4 o'clock plant, their offspring are all pink flowered plants which are heterozygous. They neither produce red nor white flowered plants because neither of the two is completely dominant. Ibig sabihin, kung i-cross natin yung pure red flowered 4 o'clock plant at pure white flowered 4 o'clock plant, lahat ng magiging offspring nila ay magiging heterozygous na kulay pink, which is represented by uppercase letter R and uppercase letter W. Walang lumabas sa offspring na color red at color white dahil hindi sila completely dominant. Kung napapansin nyo, magkaiba sila ng result ng nasa pattern of inheritance ni Mendel, kaya tinawag itong Non-Mendelian Pattern of Inheritance. At ang specific na tawag sa pattern of inheritance na nasa problem natin ay incomplete dominance. From what we observed in our problem, we can now say that incomplete dominance is the expression of blended traits in a heterozygote offspring or individual. In addition, the resulting phenotype of the heterozygote is typically in between the two different homozygote phenotypes. So now that we have an idea what is incomplete dominance, let us go back to our question in our problem. So what are the genotypes of the offspring? A genotype is an individual's collection of genes. In our example, 2 uppercase letter R and 2 uppercase letter W are the possible genotypes of a 4-o'clock flower plant. In incomplete dominance, one half of the gametes of the heterozygote's pink flowers carry the allele for the red flower and the other one half of it carry the allele for the white flower. Thus, the results of a heterozygote self-cross can still be predicted. Kung ika-cross natin sa isa't isa ang heterozygote offspring na pink flower, pwede pa rin natin ma-predict ang possible results ng offspring. So, in this case, the genotypic ratio would be 1:2:1 or 1 homozygous red, 2 heterozygous pink, and 1 homozygous white. And the phenotypic ratio would also be 1:2:1 for red, pink, and white. So now that we understand incomplete dominance, let's discover another pattern of inheritance that does not follow Mendel's principles as well, and that is codominance. So now, let's proceed to a problem involving codominance. So here is the problem. A red bull, which is a male cattle, mated with a white female cow. Predict the possible offspring by filling up the Punnett square. So if we are going to construct a Punnett square, it would look like this. So based on our Punnett square, if a pure red bull mates with a pure white cow, all their offspring will express both the alleles for red bull and white cow. Ibig sabihin, pag i-cross natin ang pure red bull at pure white cow, lalabas sa lahat ng offspring nila ang allele for red bull as well as the allele for white cow. Kaya ang magiging result ng phenotype ng offspring ay mixture ng red and white o ang tinatawag na roan coat. As we have observed in our problem, codominance is another pattern of inheritance that does not follow Mendel's law. In this form of inheritance, the alleles of a gene pair in a heterozygote offspring are fully expressed. As a result, the offspring's phenotype is the combination of the parents' phenotypes. Therefore, the trait is neither dominant nor recessive. Ibig sabihin, lahat na i-express yung alleles ng offspring dahil pareho itong dominant or codominant. Kaya ang result ng phenotype ng offspring ay ang combination ng phenotypes ng parents. Kagaya ng nasa example natin sa red na baka at white na baka, ang naging result ng offspring nila ay baka na may color red at white or roan coat. Just like in incomplete dominance, the genotypic ratio becomes the phenotypic ratio. Now, let's try solving another problem using the principle of codominance. A male cattle with roan coat mates with a female which has a red coat. A Punnett square of the cross is given below with the genotypes of the offspring. Identify the possible phenotypes of the offspring and give its phenotypic ratio. So kung napapansin nyo, parehong uppercase letter C ang ginamit to represent the alleles, which means lahat sila dominant. So para ma-identify natin alin ang may phenotype na round coat at red coat, nilagyan natin ang each letter ng superscript letter. By the way, you may find that people use different format in writing allele symbols in codominance. Some prefer to use two different uppercase letters, but some also use two uppercase letters with a superscript letter in each letter o yung parang exponent na letter. So, uppercase letter C with superscript letter R and another uppercase letter C with superscript letter W represents round coat phenotype, while uppercase letter C with superscript R and another uppercase letter C with superscript R represents red coat phenotype. Sa problem na to, given na ang result ng Punnett square. So all we have to do is to identify the possible phenotypes of the offspring and give its phenotypic ratio. So simulan natin dito sa first offspring. As you can see, meron tayong pair ng uppercase letter C with a superscript letter R. Ibig sabihin, red coat ang phenotype ng offspring na to, so ganon din sa second offspring. Dito naman, meron tayong uppercase letter C with a superscript letter R paired with uppercase letter C with superscript letter W, at ganon din sa last offspring. This means that these two offspring have a round coat phenotypes. Therefore, if a male cattle with round coat mates with a female which has a red coat, two of their offspring will have a red coat phenotype, while the other two offspring will have a round coat phenotype. And this gives us the phenotypic ratio of 2:2 for red coat and round coat phenotype. So now that we are done with our lesson, let us try to evaluate how much you have learned about incomplete dominance and codominance. So please read and analyze each item carefully and select the correct answer from the choices given. So here are the questions. Number 1. The mixture of colors among the camellia flowers is an example of what pattern of non-Mendelian inheritance? Letter A, codominance. Letter B, incomplete dominance. Letter C, both letter A and B. So you have 5 seconds to choose for your correct answer. The correct answer is letter A, codominance. Number 2. What is the phenotypic and genotypic ratios in incomplete dominance and codominance? Letter A, 2:2. Letter B, 3:1. Letter C, 1:2:1. And letter D, 1:3:0. The correct answer is letter C, 1:2:1. Number 3. All the offspring of a cross between a red-flowered plant and a white-flowered plant have pink flowers. This means that the allele for red flowers is blank to the allele for white flowers. Letter A, dominant. Letter B, codominant. And letter C, incompletely dominant. The correct answer is letter C, incompletely dominant. Number 4. What would be the genotype of a pink flower if it follows the rules for incomplete dominance, given that uppercase letter R represents red and uppercase letter W represents white? Letter A, lowercase letter p. Letter B, 2 lowercase letter p, letter c, lowercase letter r, and lowercase letter w. Letter D, uppercase letter R and uppercase letter W. The correct answer is letter D, uppercase letter R and uppercase letter W. For number 5, what type of non-Mendelian inheritance is shown in the picture below? Letter A, codominance. Letter B, incomplete dominance. The correct answer is letter A, codominance. So I guess that's all for our lesson. I hope you learned something. Thank you.